Welcome to this session on the PowerPack for Advanced Steel, and we're taking a look at the Create macros, in particular stairs, and under this video, tread types. So we're in Advanced Steel and we have the PowerPack from Graitec installed, and we're just taking a look at our stair macro. In particular, we're going to be looking at the tread configurations, so the different types available from within the macro itself. So once you're in the macro, come to the tread sub-tab. I would leave these initial settings as they are because they come from the setting out. Here you can see the type selector here, a series of radio buttons in this group of 6. So the first one is a standard plate tread. Activating that then influences what happens on the dimensions sub-tab here and the side tab arrangements here for the general, details and welds. In this case, we only have control of the thickness of the actual tread itself as variable, as there are no other parameters options needed for this plain type of tread. If we come out of the dialog and we go along to this next example here and again take a look at the macro itself, in the macro we can see again under the tread sub-tab and go to type, this is now set to a standard plate with top and bottom risers. This affects the dimensioning tab with the general side tab being enabled and details 1. Initially you have the same thickness options here, the overlap. You may wish to change the thickness. I would probably not adjust the overlap value. If you come to details 1, you can now see there's options for the top and bottom elements of the risers. So that's this element at the front and this element at the rear here, and they're controlled by these two check boxes in here. Unchecking obviously the box will disable the element required, grey out the cells that are active within the dialog. Re-enabling the box will allow you to see the options available. So here again you can offset the value from the nose, which is D1, and the height again is available in here. You can also influence the thickness if you so wish, if you wish it to be different from the main tread. And the same applies to the rear element here as well. Activating this checkbox will allow you access to these fields to change as appropriate and as required. So just closing that and moving along in the different types here. This particular type is again a plate with riser, a separate riser element. We just move that along slightly. So again, we can see here that the riser has been closed. So again, tread type, and you can see here we have a standard plate with closed riser, and again this is influencing the dimensions tab. Here you now have 3 fields available. Again, you've got thickness that you can control and overlap, so maybe thickness you would adjust. Obviously the offset figures are available here under this, and again these fields are available when it's checked. The nose length is not available, it's automatically detecting up to the underside of the next tread and closing that off with a set measurement. Welds is available, so you can influence the weld between the two elements here as well. So coming along to the next one here, if we take a look at this one, this is a slightly different one again. So with the joint dialog open, if we look under the type, we can now see we've moved to a folded plate arrangement. Again, this influences what's going on in the dimensions tab in the fact that you have general and details. Notice that welds are greyed at this present moment in time. So under here you have tread thickness, again overlap. Again, I might only change the thickness if I need to. Now you have checkboxes again for the front element and the rear element. Unchecking those will deactivate them as we've seen before and grey the cell elements out. Obviously checking them re-enables those. You have parameter options to control the depth of the element, and in this case the nose element on the front of the tread here can be adjusted by making a field entry here. The angle can also be adjusted by adjusting the angle value there. Minus is going downwards, positive is going upwards here. This element is obviously the rear of the tread, so that's what I would call the riser element, and again the same 3 field variables are there. There is no weld available under here because there is a connection element for this as well. So if we just come out of that dialog, if we come into this one, again we can see a different type again. So we're now looking at, again, tread type, and we're looking at a grating type of tread. Again, the dimensions tab is active, and here we have general and details 1. Slightly different arrangement here. You have a grating type selector. So the class is the first one, and then the size. So this is actually the thickness and the pattern and the product name. Again, there is an overlap value in there. I'd probably not adjust that because it will affect the overall setting out. You do have an additional option on details 1, which you can see this closure element plate here can be influenced by this checkbox, obviously enabled or disabled. And the user can then put entries into the field as required. Either a thickness of the plate or the vertical height here as well can be adjusted through those field entries. There's obviously a weld detail to control the weld between the grating step or tread entry and the vertical riser entry here, and obviously it can be site or shop depending on how you wish to set that. So with that, we'll just move along to a slightly different version again and take a look at this one. Just zoom in slightly before we move here in the macro. So again, tread type, and we see that this designation is special part. Again, you do have a dimensions tab available. Typically you would only have the general tab option available to you because the actual parameters in here are controlled within the Graitec Special Part Manager, which comes as part of the PowerPack as well. So you do have access to a library of parts, which again you can add special part treads to via the Special Part Manager. Obviously some of the sizes that you see there will also influence the width of the stair. You do have control over the bolt options here, whether you want it bolted and the size, etc., or the type of bolt as well, because obviously that can be different. Although the size probably wouldn't change, the type of bolt might change from a normal bolt head to a countersunk head, for example. You do have options to invert bolts and also options only to create holes as well if you so wish. The special parts themselves are, as I said, controlled via the Special Part Manager. So we'll just take a quick look at that under the PowerPack here, just to show you the element that I'm referring to. So again, we can see here, if you come down to a tab here, it will say treads, and you can see that we do have some of those added in within the system here. And obviously, depending, you can add a supplier or have generic. So if I change to supplier, you'll see there is a particular supplier or manufacturer type listed under there as well. As I said, the user can add their own supplier types into here and also populate the parameter fields here, which then populate into the dialog of the staircase. So that is a quick introduction to the different types of treads available currently within the PowerPack for advanced steel.